We're live. Have fun.
Hi. We could probably, I guess, wait a couple minutes for people to slowly join in, but hello and welcome, everybody. This is a brand new event. It's called You Remind Me of a Romance, a screwball book club. And the title, if I don't know how familiar you are with many of the screwball comedies of the 30s and 40s, but I picked the title from a different Cary Grant screwball that we were not covering tonight, but maybe in the future. The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer with Shirley Temple. The whole
I just watched that.
yeah, it's one of my favorites too. Pretty much any screwball with Cary Grant, you can't go wrong. But it's the You Remind Me of a Man bit that they do in that. That's where the title was born. So again, welcome as people are starting to join. My name is Brian Gillen, and I am a historical romance author. Most of my books are set in late 1940s Hollywood. Tons of homages to classic screwball comedies, which is why I thought of starting this new event series. And Roseanne and Marissa and everybody at Love Sweet Arrow was wonderful and wanted to take a chance on this new series. So welcome. Just a quick little intro to the series in general. As I said, I'm inspired by all the screwball comedies. I have always loved them. My mom introduced me to them when I was a kid. We always watched them together. I put so many homages in my books, and I was starting to think about, like, okay, why do I specifically love screwball comedies? A lot of them have a romance involved. It's not always the primary focus, but enough of them do have a romance, and the ones that do, it's, because it's a comedy, it's usually an HEA that we all love. And I started to think about all the different tropes that are involved, and there's a lot of overlap with romance tropes and screwball comedies. And I thought, okay. So from here forward, this is our inaugural event, but hopefully more in the future. We're going to take a screwball comedy from a classic. Tonight, of course, is Bringing Up Baby, with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. And then we're going to talk about what we love, and then talk about the romance books that it reminds us of, some of the tropes it shares, and all of that. So welcome. We're so excited. And I'm very excited to have my inaugural guests, Melanie Johnson and Liz Locke, who agreed to join me. I'm very excited. So if you two would like to kick off your introductions, introduce yourselves. And I know we've got some exciting news that Liz is celebrating this week too. So
Well, I guess I'll go first since you said my name. I'm Liz Locke. I run the blog cinemasips.com, where each week I pair a different movie with a cocktail. And tonight I'm actually drinking my Bringing Up Baby cocktail that I put up this week, the Skeleton Key, which is bourbon, Saint Germain, ginger beer, lemon juice, and Angostura bitters scattered on the top. And it's very yummy. I also write women. It does. It's very good for fall if you're looking for a fall drink. And I also write women's fiction. And as Brian said, I had some exciting news this week. My debut novel, Follow the Sun, just got announced, and it'll be released next summer with Random House Canada. So I just can't think of a better way to celebrate than this event.
We're very, very excited to have some good news to share, and very excited to read it too. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's amazing. So congratulations. And I love the backdrop there. That's really cool.
Where the magic happens.
Yes.
When I first started doing Zooms, I was doing it from my Star Wars office, there is a bar in there, and I'm kind of like sitting behind the bar, but it's really dark in there. So I stopped doing the Zooms in that room because I could just start pulling booze out of the cabinet.
Yep.
I'm Melanie Johnson, also known as the Writing Lush, hence all the alcohol. Yeah. I write contemporary romances and romantic comedies. My most recent rom-com was Too Good to Be Real, which was basically an homage to the romantic comedy genre. And I am a lover of the screwball comedy. So when Brianne asked about, about this event, I was delighted to be a part of it because Bringing Up Baby, I've been a fan of this movie since I was in my teens. It's, I don't know how I found them. I think it was, but from finding them and when it what happened one night, all of those, I carry a torch for them.
Yes. Yeah, it's very much, I was trying to put together a list of people I knew to invite in. And I was like, oh, I know Melanie said she's like screwballs. And I know Liz and I have always talked about the classic Hollywood stuff. So it was a very serendipitous, great timing. So thank you both. Yeah, and if anybody wants to, at some point in the comments, if anybody's got any fun cocktails that they are partaking of this evening, feel free to share.
Yeah,
yes, we're happy to hear it. So like I said, we are here to discuss Bringing Up Baby specifically. You really cannot go wrong with Cary Grant screwball comedies. He made many of them and they're all great. And speaking of backdrops too, part of the reason I picked my backdrop too is, I don't know if you can see behind me. There's an artist I found, I think she goes by Curious Pip on Instagram. She has really cute, fun illustrations. A lot of them are classic Hollywood inspired, but I got this collection from her a few years ago that it's all Bringing Up Baby artwork.
I see the leopard.
Yes, yeah. So it's great. She captured the costumes and it's just great. So I don't know if she still has them. Her stuff kind of goes up and down in availability, but these were fun. I snapped them up. So they're great. To start, I think I'm just going to do a very quick, very brief, if possible, summary in case. I would assume that most of you joining us tonight have probably seen the movie. It may have been a while though, just in case you haven't. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking spoilers. So if you've never seen it and you care about spoilers, you might want to watch the replay later. Otherwise, if you don't care, we're going to spoil stuff. But I'll give you a very quick little synopsis to refresh your memory, and then we'll dive into what we love about it. I was saying to everybody beforehand that it was, when I rewatched it again, as many times as I've seen this movie, I rewatched it again the other night to prep for today, and thinking about having to summarize it in a couple of minutes. I was like, oh no, there's so much plot in this movie and it all just snowballs and gets crazy. So to start with, I will say I pulled out my DVD collection, and this came in a set of others that I have it. And the tagline for this on the back said, Cary Grant's uptight, Katharine Hepburn's unhinged. And that just it sums up the movie quickly. It's like, yeah, pretty much. So we have Cary Grant plays a paleologist. He is a fossil guy. He works at a museum and is engaged to a very serious lady who is not Katharine Hepburn. And they have a brontosaurus skeleton at the museum. They have uncovered the final missing piece, his beloved intercosta clavicle. I might be mispronouncing that, but when they get it delivered to him, he pretty much carries it around almost like an emotional support dinosaur bone throughout much of the first half of the movie. But he is trying to get funding, and there's a very rich older lady who is giving away $1 million. And so he goes to her lawyer to try and get the money. While playing golf with the lawyer, he gets derailed for the first of many times by Katharine Hepburn's character, who accidentally, inadvertently overtakes his golf ball, then pretty much steals his car because they have the same car and are parked next to each other. Shenanigans ensue. They then meet up again later in fancy clothes at a restaurant. There's a hilarious scene where she's doing tricks with olives. Carrie slips and falls. And of course, inevitably, they end up, they literally try to tear each other's clothes off. accidentally, but you know, euphemisms abound because there is romance. But then it's a hilarious scene. She helps him try to track down the lawyer. And then also inadvertently, her brother is off in, I believe it's South America somewhere, finds a tame leopard to send back to their aunt. And Katharine Hepburn gets it in the meantime, thinks it's hers, doesn't know what to do with it, ropes Cary Grant into helping her take the leopard to Connecticut, to their country home. She's already head over heels for him, and he's trying very hard not to fall for her, unsuccessfully. They end up in Connecticut. There's an incident with chickens and feathers, and so he ends up having to change clothes and shower and get cleaned up. She steals his clothes to get them cleaned. She sends them out, so he inevitably ends up in first a ridiculously fluffy bathrobe and then a really ill-fitting riding outfit with socks and sandals, because why not? And yet somehow Cary Grant still pulls it off. Then in the meantime, there is a little dog who you may recognize. He's a very talented canine actor, who I believe played Asta in the Thin Man films. Also, I think he's the same dog who was in The Awful Truth, also with Cary Grant, also one of my favorites. But he runs off with the dinosaur bone, buries it in the yard. So needless to say, Cary Grant misses his wedding, can't get back until he finds the dinosaur bone. There's a crazy dinner party. The leopard and the dog both get loose. So then, of course, they have to track them through the countryside trying to find them. There's also, because why not, a circus in town with a bad leopard who has clawed a guy. So they're taking that leopard off to be dealt with. Katharine Hepburn, of course, thinks it's Baby, the tame leopard, lets him out. So now there's 2 leopards on the loose. And it all comes down to practically the entire cast of the movie ends up in the jail in the town with a very inept sheriff trying to track down what's going on. And in true romance fashion, Cary Grant completes his romance hero arc by realizing how much he loves Katharine Hepburn and fighting off the vicious leopard with a wooden chair because he needs to save her. And inevitably at the end, the original fiance breaks up with him. He realizes he's in love with Katharine Hepburn and has had the best day of his entire life. And she decides she gets the money from her aunt, who the old lady giving away the money, of course, is her aunt, decides to give her the money instead. And then she gives it to the museum for Cary Grant before collapsing his entire Brontosaurus skeleton. And that's pretty much it. That's the skeleton of the plot. It all snowballs. I hope I did it justice, but we'll get into the details. But that's sort of the summary of the crazy bonkers plot.
Yeah, it is not one that you can watch like half-heartedly with your cell phone, and the other hand, like put everything away. You must focus.
Yeah, you miss one thing. You're like, wait, how did they get there?
What is happening?
Yeah, even if you've been paying attention.
New random characters being introduced. I think summarizing by saying hijinks ensue or shenanigans ensue pretty much covers all your bases, because take any plot point and shenanigans shall ensue from.
Exactly. Yes. And then snowball and get out of control, and
Yeah, there's an element of the old Shakespeare comedies to these to have these kind of snowballing events, and how all of the characters kind of all end up together in one final kind of massive cluster F.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And of course, because it was during, I think this one was 37 or 38.
38, yeah. And
the Hays Code was introduced in, I believe it was 1934, which, if you're not so familiar with some of the classic movies, it's in 1934, they introduced the Hays Production Code, which basically censored everything and is part of the reason that, like everybody thinks of this sanitized version of these 50s. And it really was just because there were rules that you couldn't do stuff on screen in Hollywood. And so there were all kinds of, especially in the screwball comedies, there were really fun ways that they found to get around it and do all the, little subtle clues and the innuendos and,
Well, when he like grinds her up against her.
I think that's my favorite part.
Yeah. They're literally like accidentally tearing each other's clothes off. And then like, she's got the back of her dress is gone. So he's got to, like have her in front of him and they walk out and it's just.
The choreography is so impressive in that scene.
Really
I watch it, I'm overwhelmed again. Like I wish there was outtakes of that scene somewhere because there is no way they got it right on the first time. I don't know how consummate those actors are. Like it is so smooth and so perfect. I'm just like, if you've ever been in a 3-legged race, like you can just imagine, and they're like both legs together.
Yeah, and sandwiched up against each other, like there's no room between them.
Yeah.
But just even the scene before that, when he's like trying to choreograph himself around her and like cover her butt with his hat is just. She's like, "What are you doing?"
Physical comedy, like physicality, is a huge element of the slapstick. Yeah,
exactly. And that's probably why Cary Grant was so good in so many of them, because he had that. I think he had acrobatic training when he was young.
I think you're right. Yeah.
The physical stuff he could do. I mean, he, the way he, in this one where he slips and falls on the olive, and then, all of the physical stuff he does with the hat and with the animal. And even like, I think at the end when she's collapsing the skeleton, I mean, he's holding her up pretty much with one hand. And it doesn't look like there's a lot of editing or fancy cuts there. Like he's actually lifting her. So
yeah, I love it. And I love that you mentioned little George the terrier, because that is another, like, that's my second favorite part in here, because I don't know about you both, but I grew up with Eddie on Frasier, and this dog has major Eddie vibes to me. He's very cheeky and mischievous, and I love him in this. I love him in the Thin Man movies. That dog is a star.
Yes,
That dog is very #sorry not sorry.
And I feel like in every role, like he very much was typecast, because he did it as Asta. He does it in this one, and the awful truth too. Some of the antics that he gets up to with, like, he knocks over a mirror. He's a very talented dog. I feel like TCM could make him like the star of the month.
Oh, yes,
they should. But that's actually a nice segue. One of the things that we had wanted to talk about was all the different tropes in this one. One of it is, of course, meddling animals, because you have not only, I think he's George in this one, the dog, who is full of mischief. You have the tame leopard, and then you also have the evil, vicious, the wild leopard, who is doing what leopards are supposed to do. And then just to kind of, that's the one of the main tropes, is the animals. But then we also have the which we will get into, the sort of stuffed shirt / free spirit, and of course the homages to all the fossils. I think in a lot of the historical romances you see the, it's usually the fossil girl. This is the fossil guy. He sort of is the, Ross Geller without being so annoying. But to start with the animal antics, I think they just, there's some great stuff in this, with not only with the dog that they then have to follow around and are following not only throughout the yard, but then there's a dinner scene where he just keeps getting up to follow the dog, and people are like, what is happening?
He's waiting for him to go get the bone. Yes.
Yeah, so that he can get his beloved, into Costa Clavo. And then I think there's also a really great scene at the beginning, which I love, where she's trying to figure out what to do with the leopard, and she's petting him. He's like leaning up against her and is awful cute and everything, and you're thinking, this is a leopard, how? But she's on the phone with Cary Grant and accidentally trips and falls just because she's scatterbrained, and he thinks the leopard attacks, and so she of course
she makes him think that, and we see her do this multiple times throughout the movie where she manipulates the situation to really it starts out like the beginning, she just really seems like she's clueless and accidentally takes his stuff thinking it's her own, but then the harder she falls for him throughout the movie, the more she does all the antics with, right. And
the leopard's attacking.
And I think it's as romance readers, we love this, but my husband hated this movie because of that character. We tried watching it together and he was like, she's awful. Why would he go out with her? Why would he fall in love with her? I don't understand. And I'm like, clearly you don't. This is everything I want to see in a movie and a book.
So the manipulation, he can't handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She definitely.
That's how she can manage, finding that balance and selling it, where, because we see that she's kind of doing things to kind of finagle her way into a situation where she wants to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she's always trying to one up the situation and not only convince him to fall for her, but then I think there's a great scene where he's on the phone with his super uptight fiance, and she gets on the other landline and is trying to do all kinds of stuff, and is interrupting at the tone the time will be, and just driving them crazy. And then it escalates to, and I love when she decides to finally go with it, when the sheriff is completely inept and does not believe anything she's saying, and so she then decides at one point to just run with it and imply that they're a criminal gang, and she turns into the tough talking film noir dame,
like Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek.
Exactly. She very much has very much Moira Rose vibes. I didn't think of that until
I feel like the Moira Rose character takes a lot from Katharine Hepburn, actually.
Yeah, that I never put that together, but that's so true. Yeah. And then she ends up, trying to get them all. She ends up getting them all in jail. And then, of course, the only thing that gets them out is the appearance of the actual leopard, which I just love. I love the visuals of Cary Grant fending them off with a chair.
It actually exists. Yes.
Right.
Are you hunting leopards right now?
Yeah, and you have the inexplicable, the friend of the aunt who comes for dinner, and he's he calls himself Major Applegate, so he's we don't know if he's former military or what, but
it was the guy from the Parent Trap, wasn't he in the Parent?
I think
Charles Ruggles.
Yes.
I'm I don't know why he's in this. I don't know what this character is or what he's doing, but I'm just happy to see him.
And he's a big game hunter and does animal calls, and so there's this hilarious montage where he's doing the weird stuff with his fingers, and he reminds me a little bit too of the guy from Singing in with the, this is a talking picture.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He's got that kind of vibe too, but he's doing the animal calls, and then of course is like, oh no, that's a loon. No, that's a leopard. So yeah, it's a lot. And
Yes.
So, but we definitely do see, this is sort of, we talking about this a little bit, and we debated, it's on the surface of it, it's kind of a grumpy sunshine, but it's a little more, it's kind of an offshoot of that I think everything lately gets lumped into the grumpy sunshine umbrella. But he is very much like, he's more stuffed shirt than grumpy, and she's very much the free spirit. She's kind of like the original version of the manic pixie dream girl. She just is doing her own thing the whole time. And he's very much the stuffed shirt. But we do see little hints of it at the beginning, because I love the scene where he's talking to his fiance and they're talking about getting married. And, he's like, oh, we'll get to take a honeymoon. She's like, no, your work is more important. And the dinosaur is our child. And he's just like, oh, you just see him deflate.
Planting that seed for us, knowing that he wants, that's kind of like, that's the romance aspect that that piece of the puzzle is being set for us, the audience, and we're just waiting for that other piece later. So we know that he belongs with someone who's more the free spirit. Like they'll fit together better. Yeah. Right. And I do I watched the trailer for this just before we came on, and they called her I think it was a fluffy brained like vixen or something like that. And was the phrase for it. I was like, okay. I mean, it's like that borderline, because I really can't stand the hysterical woman trope in a lot of these older films where they're just like, but I feel like never loses, for all of her zaniness and all of her ineptness, like she never loses her agency. Like she's driving things, often literally, throughout the storyline. And so that I feel like, the goofiness is to her, she's using it to her advantage.
Yeah, and she does it not in, like, for all of it being manipulative, you don't see it as a negative for the most part. I mean, obviously not everybody is on board with that, but
well, maybe he had his phone out when it was being set up that Carrie is looking for exactly like this thing in his life.
Could be.
He wants someone to rescue him from the boring fiance.
Right. But she very much comes across as like very sweet and endearing, despite being all over the place. And and she does for sure keep her agency, and for like everything pretty much happens because she sets it in motion, and is
her or George, like one of the two.
Or George, yeah, exactly. And when George does, she encourages him to keep going. The scenes where they're sort of just roaming around trying to follow him are just so funny. And then of course you have the her aunt, who he doesn't realize at first is the woman he needs to impress, and so he makes a terrible first impression on her. And then it turns out she's the aunt, but Katharine Hepburn keeps telling the aunt all kinds, like layering thing upon thing of he was a big game hunter and he had an accident, and so he had a nervous breakdown, and then of course doesn't tell him, and then of course he's leaping up to go after the dog all the time, and it's just there's so much to love. And then you have the random psychiatrist who they sort of keep running into.
Oh yeah,
at the restaurant.
Yeah, it's like she gives his wife's purse to Carrie to like, hold this for me, will you? And then it's some other woman's purse, and she thinks he's now stolen it.
And then they somehow end up at his house later. And so he's egging the sheriff on to be like, oh, they stole everything. They're, there's something going on here, until the lawyer finally shows up at the end. He's like, oh, I might have been wrong about this.
Man.
So many fun antics.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. And I think just all the whole scene with the cocktail olives is too funny with them.
Yeah.
The bartender's trying to teach her a trick. And then of course the stuff ends up on the floor and Cary Grant ends up slipping onto his butt.
Yes. And that's my favorite dress of hers, is that scene. And then it gets ripped.
Of course. I know. But she's got that little like floaty
it's like
veil thing on her head.
I have never been able to figure that thing out. Like, it's like,
I know.
like what I feel like, again, it just adds to her complete bonkersness. It's like a very flimsy, clear material, but it's got like that outline. So it just looks like this antenna around her.
Yeah. She's got this like little floating thing that you assume is probably gold that just sort of floats with her.
To the costume designer and Bravo, like it was like adding to the overall effect of the zine. And I think in every screwball comedy there's got to be at least one pratfall, so at least you're gonna have
at least.
The banana peel approach, so
of course. And then the wardrobe malfunctions. There's his coat gets ripped, her dress gets torn, he ends up in a bathrobe, and then sandals and socks. It's just but I love too how you really see his progression into buttoned up stuffed shirt, and then his hair progressively gets messier. He starts losing his glasses until they finally break, and he's just like, whatever. And of course she has told him already, oh, you look so much handsomer without your glasses. And then so of course then he doesn't mind when they break. But yeah, you just see him slowly unravel more and more, and then he tries to get away from her at the end. It's like, I've just realized that was the best day I ever had in my life. But yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know if you all have any more to say about the movie specifically, but we wanted to also include the element of, if you liked this movie or you're looking for these tropes in your life, here's where we add to your TBR pile. Sorry, I apologize in advance. We're going to add to your TBR pile. But we had a lot of romances that we came up with that we love, that have these same vibes. And yeah, so first of all, one of the ones I have to shout out, Ruby Lang. I don't know if she's here tonight or in the comments saying hi, but I know Ruby mentioned on Twitter that there's a book, I believe I wrote down, it's Bring It, correct me if I'm wrong, that's coming out next year that is very much a contemporary retelling of Bringing Up Baby. And I am very excited because Ruby's books are great anyway, but add Bringing Up Baby on top of that, I'm very excited for that. So I'll be watching. And I believe Kate Bateman's most recent one, A Daring Pursuit, is a historical retelling of Bringing Up Baby. This one, I think it involved bears rather than leopards, but we did have the, sweet, gentle, tame bear that gets loose and then gets mixed up with the vicious escaped bear. And, very much, I was reading, I was like, ooh, I recognize this straight. And it was definitely also a, he was a stuffed shirt, she's a free spirit kind of thing. They added, I think she added the, like a second chance element too, because they had known each other as kids and always crushing each other, which was great. But that's a fun one. That series is great. And I believe it's Regency, if I remember correctly, not Victorian. Because I think a lot of the characters are coming home from the wars with Napoleon. So those are very specifically bringing up baby inspired. So be sure to check them out. I know, I'm trying to think of more. And I think Tessa Dare also, if you're going in the historical route, I mean, she's got the wall, I believe it's the Wallflower Wager, is the one that has a lot of animal antics, because there's the main character, she rescues a lot of animals, goats, parrots, all kinds of stuff. And her next door neighbor is the grumpy guy who doesn't want to deal with the animals, and then of course, is all in and cuddling with them at some point later. But Tessa Dare also has a Week to Be Wicked, which is the fossil element. So
yeah, and there's also the second one in the Spinster Cove one, whatever, she's the Minerva is into all the rocks. Yes. Yeah. And she's, in a way, she's a little more of the stuffed shirt, and he's the free spirit in that one, if I remember correctly. But they go on a road she's
trip.
the stuffed shirt, and he's the free spirit. 100% Colin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's a road trip with all the fun road trip shenanigans that always happen. But
right. And so we were talking about physical comedy and especially wardrobe malfunctions. I think this is something we see Kristen Higgins do a lot of.
Yeah.
I was when we were kind of brainstorming about this chat, one that sticks out in my mind forever is the scene where I think her name is Faith, and she loses her sweater into an automatic flush toilet. And and it just sucked it, and she's trying. So I mean, there's a lot of that kind of slapstick, very physical comedy in Kristen Higgins, especially the Blue Heron series, all of those.
Yeah, it's like I find myself laughing out loud at pretty much all of her books. And also similar to what you were saying earlier, at least her more recent books have been, I think they're marketed as women's fiction, but it's like there's always a romance B plot in them, kind of like these movies. Like the romance isn't the central thing, but it's there, and we're still rooting, and you still get that happily ever after at the end. And for sure, I mean, the one book of hers that I always think of immediately is Now That You Mention It. She has got just the best dinner party scene I have ever read in that book. She's throwing a dinner party on a houseboat, and she invites, her friend, her mother, all of these random townspeople, the guy she's interested in. And it's just like things just snowball into chaos as the night goes on. And, the bathroom gets destroyed. People get drunk. Someone throws up on the guy she's interested in. Somebody hits a deer on the way out. It's like, you just don't see any of this coming. And it reminded me so much when I was reading it of these classic Hollywood films.
I love how dinner parties are just such a great vehicle in movies, TV, and books. Even it's forced proximity on steroids.
Yeah,
and it always just snowballs.
Personalities that don't usually have to get shoved together.
Yep.
And you add alcohol.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think they're hard to write, and sometimes they aren't always successful, but when they work, boy, they work really well. And especially in movies too. I was just watching Breakfast at Tiffany's, which was not a screwball comedy, but that party scene at her apartment, it's just like, well, I just think Blake Edwards was one of the great party directors.
Yeah.
And so you get that by like the fast talking and all the random conversations that happen at the dinner party scene in this, like you were saying earlier, they keep checking on the dog to see if he, found the bone yet. It's like chaos at this dinner party.
Right. And it's a relatively small dinner party too, because there's only 4 people at this one, but it just, you get the dog, you get the animal calls at the table, and then you hear the animal outside, and it's just, but it definitely is tricky. And I applaud everyone who can write them well. Because even just writing like small, simple group scenes is tricky to get all the moving pieces. And so to add comedy on top of that is,
right.
you know, a huge round of applause for the people who can do that well. Yeah, because even I think, what was the one I was thinking of? Even like While You Were Sleeping, which was a more recent-ish rom-com, but one of my all-time favorites. But the scene where they're in the, you know, there's 4 different conversations going on with the grandmother, and they're talking about New Year's Eve, and then you got the mother saying, you know, these mashed potatoes are so creamy.
Yeah.
And, you know, like all the little bits and pieces just have to work so well, and it's fun. So, yeah.
And then another one that we brought up, another contemporary, was The Tourist Attraction by Sarah Morgenthaler.
Oh, yeah.
That one, I thought it was so funny, and especially that one in particular brings in the animal sidekicks, because it opens with this moose Ulysses like rubbing himself up against the hero's car, and he becomes like this presence throughout the book. And so that, I feel like that really sets the tone for the whole book. It's just so funny.
And you have Jake the dog. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And his little outfits.
Yeah.
His pajamas.
And I have to say, I'm excited too. I'm looking forward to your next one, Melanie, because I think you teased that there's going to be a hedgehog involved.
Yes, there is
very
a
eager.
hedgehog, Princess Jojo, and Seamus, the foul-mouthed cockatoo. So when I was watching Only Murders in the Building, which I loved that show, the second season, there was a bird who also had quite the colorful vocabulary, and I was dying because like, it is kind of a known trope, the bird says naughty things, you know.
Yes. Yeah, I believe that actually. I think in the Tessa Dare one too, and I think it's Wallflower Wager. I hope I'm getting that one right.
The bird
with Penny,
naughty,
but she I think she had a that she had adopted, who had originated in a brothel, and so she inherited the parrot, and the parrot
they may have heard. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the parrot had some choice words that he would, you know, repeat at perfectly strategic intervals, and it was hilarious. So yeah, the rogue birds are always
rogue birds. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we were just in general, you know, you think of the stories that involve animals and how the animals can kind of lead to and I think in Sarah Morgenthaler's Tourist Attraction, like there are some elements with Ulysses, the moose, that kind of create some plot point moments. So, you know, they're there, but they also, you know, have a role to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always fun when they have a personality in addition to, you know, driving the plot forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was going to say too, one that I loved, which had a few screwball antics, which I would not necessarily call a screwball at all, is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. It's relatively new, so I don't want to spoil anything because I know probably not a lot have had a chance to read it yet necessarily. I think it only came out a month or two ago, but that one, for all it deals a lot with loneliness and grief and all of that, but she really does a great job of blending humor into it as well, and it's a very sweet, warm, fuzzy kind of book at the same time. But there's one scene in particular that it happens, I can't say too much because it would spoil it, and it comes out as a great fun moment that had me just actually laughing out loud. There's something that happens with children involved in that one, and you know, magic and everything, and that one just, there's some great moments that are sort of, you know, they're teased a little bit, but yet I did not see it And then when it did, it was very funny. So
Well, and perfect timing for this with October coming up.
yeah,
tomorrow.
exactly.
So
It was
I know what I'm
very-
reading this month.
yes, it was very much a good spooky season, scary season book.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, it was very like warm and fuzzy for fall, but also, you know, had some really touching, serious stuff, but with the humor, and you know, and also a stuffed shirt, free spirit pairing.
Yeah, that's on my TBR list. I haven't read it yet, but I am reading The Witches of Moonshine Manor right now, which now that I think of it, also has a quirky bird who's the familiar one of the characters, one of the witches in the story, and kind of will say all the things the witch is thinking out loud.
There was one, I think is it Erin Sterling, I think, who
she did the X-Hex.
X-Hex.
Yeah.
That one had a cat that ended up talking, didn't he? I think.
Yes, I believe. Yes, because it was when the curse. Yes, and because all it did was say treats.
Yes, that's right.
All
That's
it said was treats.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of
what would my animals say if they could talk? And really, all they would say is just, give me more treats.
Yeah.
Which is really what they try to say anyway, without words. That's all they want. Yeah.
Actually, now that you mentioned it, the Kiss Curse, that's the next one. But the X-Hex did have some really fun physical comedy. Like there's a scene in the shop where all those little teeth things go live. They're like everything. Like
I forgot about that. Yeah, because that's when I guess the whole town gets cursed, and then there's just like random stuff that starts happening. It's like, oh, wait a minute, we better fix this.
Everything was kind of just a little bit off. Yeah. So here it's funny.
I feel like you would think it's good. A lot of the magic, witches, paranormal stuff, it does lend itself really well to screwball comedy.
Yeah. Well, and I just and I think because when I was thinking, I'm like, I gotta try to remember, we're talking about more romances, but you think of like there's lots of mysteries that also you will use that whole, like, I think of Clue, I think of being kind of a which I think was trying to play off of those screwball comedies. Yeah,
for sure.
Brianna, are you doing So I Married a Witch on this series or not?
It's on my radar. I mean, I do have tentatively, we've got the first few sort of started to plan out, but I have a large list to choose from.
I was just wondering because we're bringing up all of these witch books. I'm like,
I know
we could do that one.
It's like, wait a minute, I
seen that one.
a paranormal one.
It's really Veronica Lake. She's so good in it. It's so funny. Is she reincarnated somehow, or she was like, or descended? She was like in a bottle or something. It was like she was in a bottle, that like Jeannie from
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Me too. But I remember thinking like, oh, this is really funny, and she's just fantastic in it. And Melanie, you've got her like side swoop hair down perfectly.
Yes.
So I feel like I have to check it out.
Yeah.
It's kind of, now that I think about it, I think it's kind of a little bit like a precursor to Bewitched, the TV
it really
series.
Is.
She's a witch and he's a mortal, and
he doesn't know that she's a witch. And,
right.
It's cute.
It's fun. Definitely have to pull that one back out for Halloween. So there's some good ones. One I definitely also wanted to bring up in terms of the little bit of stuffed shirt free spirit also that I thought of was Talia Hibbert's Actor Age, Eve Brown. Right. That one's got some good, that whole series is great. But this one, I think they meet, it's not their first meeting, but it's right after their first meeting. I think she even hits him with her car. he's okay. But then she ends up having to stay to take care of him, and there's the forced proximity. But there's definitely some good, comedy moments in that one. And he's very much, and buttoned up. And she's, the free spirit, but it's a great read.
It's the one where he owns an inn. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. It's just such a great setting for this.
Yeah. And she's kind of trying to find her way in life and ends up here and, finds not only her path, but love.
Yes.
But it's fun. But that whole Brown Sisters series is great.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite. I remember just laughing the most at that third one.
Yeah, I think I really do enjoy the stuffed shirt and the free spirit, and I'm kind of working on one of my own right now. And it just because it's just so much fun to watch the unraveling of that character, like the breaking down of their their very strict wall, and it's like it's so much fun when you see it physically throughout the storyline, as with bringing a baby, and he's getting messier and messier. And so Book of Love, which was a romance rom-com that came out last year, the beginning of this year, and he was a romance novel. Well, he was a novelist. He wrote this book, and it wasn't very popular. But the Spanish translation in Mexico, I believe it was Mexico, the Spanish translation was incredibly popular, and that was because the translator, she spiced it up quite a bit. So
nice.
you have your stuffy shirt, the author, and the translator being the free spirit, and you literally see his clothing, like his buttons on his shirt, slowly starts to loosen up.
Nice. That one him
loosening up. Yeah, it's Book of Love. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for reminding me, because I remember seeing the trailers and thinking it looked really cute, and then I never did get back to it. So I have to. It did look fun. Yeah. And it is really fun and somehow satisfying to watch them just completely, little by little. It was tie. Hair gets messy.
And we didn't mention it, but there is of course, the Madonna retelling of Bringing Up Baby. Who's That Girl? Right. It is like literally a modern version of Bringing Up Baby, leopard and all. Like it's the whole thing.
Yep.
So yep.
Yes.
I'm gonna watch that one to get nostalgia. And Madonna, she can't. It's not Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, but it's fun.
Exactly. You get the 80s fun fashions, so
She does adopt her, because I think it's because Katharine Hepburn, like the way she speaks, because she has the whole Moira Rose thing, but and the way she talks, like Madonna in this definitely adopts her own kind of odd speech pattern that's borderline. You just want to be quiet.
Yeah, because there are quite a few moments in this where she's talking so fast you can't even catch every word. That's one thing about a lot of the screwball comedies, is how they managed to fit that much dialogue into because most of these movies are only an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. So, they pack so much dialogue in, and it's great. They could definitely give
Yeah, please. A 90-minute movie is my dream these days, where everything is 2 hours and 15 minutes. I do not have time for this at night.
Yes.
Yeah, Bringing Up Baby is 1 hour and 42 minutes.
Perfect.
Yep. Short and very sweet. I know.
Yeah. Well, and that comes down to the talent of the actors and comic timing and all that, because it's it's the whole it's not just the person, it's not just her who's rattling, he's got to time his interjections just so, and it's his facial expressions where you see him kind of run the gamut of, and you just see him just give in.
Yep. I think that's one of my favorite things that he does so well. He does it in a few other movies, but this one, I think he's at his best at it, of him just he starts to speak. There's several scenes where he's like starting to speak and trying to get a word in, and then finally he's just like, you know, I mean, he throws up his hands and does that little, you know, noise that he makes that's just sort of like, okay. And it's just, it's classic. He could do it all.
Yeah. Well, I put this in my post, but it was really fun to see them in the Grant and Hepburn in this movie, like meeting each other. Because the movie I've seen more, just because I grew up in the hometown of Jimmy Stewart, was the Philadelphia Story.
Oh yeah.
And that one, they're already like divorcees, and so
Right.
it's like this feels like a prequel of sorts to it, where they're just like meeting cute. And then you can kind of see like why they might be headed toward divorce in the Philadelphia Story.
Yes.
But they managed to pull it together.
Yeah. 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 That one's
such a great pair.
Oh yeah. That one's on my list too, for sure. I love the sister in that one too, where she's just always mispronouncing words, but you know, she means Inundo and everything.
Best drunk acting in a movie, Jimmy Stewart, Philadelphia Story. I'm saying it right now.
Yes.
The Globe Screwball Comedy Awards, that would be one of the best.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's another case where he kind of starts out a little stuffed shirt, you know, and is very buttoned up and is a serious writer, and then he just sort of slowly starts to unravel. And then you know, the scene with him and Cary Grant where he's really drunk and Cary is trying to keep up with him is just so funny. He's got the hiccups and everything, and it's just priceless.
Well, I'll be tuning into that episode.
Yeah, that one's hopefully that'll be coming down the line, because I do love that one.
So when is the next one? Because this is like the start of a series.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're tentatively planning. I know we're still trying to work out some of the details with dates and stuff, but I know we for sure are going to talk about It Happened One Night. I know. Yeah. And then I think we're hoping to, I also would love to incorporate a few like musicals that get billed mostly as musicals, but they totally are screwballs. So I would love to do The Pirate with Gene Kelly is one that's
oh my god,
extensively on the list. I've mentioned
I'm there.
I'm gonna so good. And it's, I mean, Gene Kelly, I will just say Gene Kelly short shorts, I'm just gonna leave that there and tease you with that. But yeah, I know, I think, and we're trying to, I've been talking to a few guests. I know Maureen Lee Lanker from she writes for Entertainment Weekly, but she's got her debut is coming next year as well. She's going to hopefully be on, and then I've been talking to hoping to get Ava Lee and maybe Jen DeLuca. I've been talking to maybe about, we're going to hopefully talk pirates with her. So it's, you know, we're still working out some of the details. Stay tuned. But we're hoping to do that. And I know Maureen was really excited because she's into the classic movies too, and her book is also set in classic Hollywood. So I think between you, Liz, and me and her, we're hoping to get more mid 20th century history.
So mine is set in the 1960s, so a little bit after yours, but it's still a time period we do not see enough of in the genre. So
I think there's Emma Barron and Eve Turner have that great
oh my god, I love the Moon, their astronaut series. It's so good.
Yeah, that one
I want them
great.
to all be made into movies. They are so good.
Yes. Yeah, like a little, like it could be a mini series or something. So many that, you know, like Netflix and Apple and everybody should be making.
Well, I know, you know, and you see like 1930s, 40s, 60s, 50s, 60s, you see that all the time in TV and movies. And I'm just like, why not books? Why not happy books?
Right. We need the HEAs.
Yes. I know my mom has said to me so many times, she's like, my book club is reading one in the 1940s again. It's another World War II book. Depressing. It's so depressing. I got you.
Yeah. And I know that's why I wanted to set mine like after the war. So like they deal with that stuff, but it's like, it's still.
Well, my stepfather used to say when my mother would make this complaint, he's like, well, some people had a happy ending in the war. Like, what about the baby boomers?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's their book?
Right. So, yeah. So, and the more romances we can get from, all different historical time periods.
I love it.
So, yeah. On that note, I don't know if everybody wanted to kind of tease, since we're kind of nearing the end a little bit here. If you wanted to tease your own books, I don't know if we had anybody in comments who made any suggestions of their own that the movie reminded them of. So feel free to comment away. But while we're doing that, I know we have teased, Liz, your book comes out next year, right?
Yes. So it's summer 2023. It's called Follow the Sun. And it's set in the 1960s, features a romance between an aspiring singer-songwriter and a Life magazine photographer. And although it's sold as women's fiction, it does have a happily ever after, I promise. So if you're interested in the love story from that period, definitely check it out. And I also wanted to tease, I've got a lot of fun movies coming up on CinemaSips, and we're approaching what is historically the biggest time of the year for CinemaSips, which is Christmas. And in addition to classic Christmas movies, I also like to do a couple Hallmark Lifetime Christmas movies on there, which can only be improved with a cocktail. So definitely check that out.
Excellent. Good. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I can put in a request. I know Holiday Affair is one of them.
I've done that one. Yeah, do a search. Yeah, Robert Mitchum. Oh my God. I want to murder that little boy, and he makes it so hard for his mother to get with Robert Mitchum. I just and I know the actor that played that little boy was at Turner Classic Movies Fest this year.
Oh, nice.
And my friend that I was there with, she's like, oh, I want to go see this and like see the kid. And I'm like, I don't want to be anywhere near that kid. Like, he annoyed me so much in Holiday Affair. I know he's a grown adult now, but
yeah. I have to say the story behind that one, thanks to, all the little TCM teases, that actually helped provide the backstory for my first book, for Nick, my male lead in Difficult.
That's right, the dope scandal.
Yes, he had a dope scandal that got him in trouble. When I was trying to come up with a scandal that would get him in trouble, enough trouble that would be paired with, diva actress, I came up with the, Robert Mitchum had his drug arrest and was, did not want to make a cute, fluffy holiday rom-com, but the studio was like, no, you have to improve your image because people think, you're a criminal. So that was the inspiration for Nick, except Nick actually, spoiler alert, wanted his movie. He had motives of his own, but that one, I always love that one, and that one's got it.
Yeah, I love that so much about your books, when I recognize like some little story or a movie or like something that you've like twisted to work into your own plot. But for people who know, like, it's a little gift.
Yeah, it's the years of watching TCM. Right. All of it is just in there, and I didn't have to do a lot of research. It was just there. So. Yeah. And so, Melanie, what do you have? Yours is next one is February, right?
Oh yeah. So Too Wrong to Be Right. I just got the arcs in. So this one's
pretty cute. Yay!
And you can see there's the hedgehog and there's the cockatoo.
Cute. I love it.
This one is my next rom-com, and it so it he works in a funeral home and she's a florist. So we have some corpses involved.
I have to say, I've read a couple that have that setting, and like you would think it wouldn't work, and somehow it always really, really does. but it's,
so I started watching because when I had done like an interview for a book blogger, and for my last book, and he'd asked what you're working on next, and I mentioned this book and the whole funeral home thing, and he talked about the show 6 Feet Under, which was on HBO. I had never seen it, but I started going back and watching old episodes, and I was like, this is really good, and I was blown away because I had not seen it, but there's like the two brothers, one who's stuffy shirt, one who's kind of more free spirited, and I had that in my book, and I had not watched the show, and I was like, oh, those are my two brothers, like
serendipitous.
So people were like, oh, it's got 6 Feet Under vibes. I'll be like, yes, it does, but it was totally by accident.
I have to admit, my upcoming release is I don't know if you can see it behind me here. It's
I see the cover. It looks so great. Your covers are just so great every time.
I just got my arcs too. Please forgive me for stuff, but this is my sea monster novella. It's classic Hollywood, but I added a sea monster. But it's coming out in October, and it was definitely one of those where she's a specialty makeup artist and doing a creature movie. And then it turns out he might actually be a sea monster. But I was very like, there's a book called The Lady from the Black Lagoon about the real life Patrick, who designed the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, and my friend Rosalie loved that book. She recommended it too.
And she didn't get credit for it for decades because of the patriarchal system and everything. So I she was the very teeny tiny inspiration for my character, but I purposely didn't read the biography of her until I was finished, because I don't want to accidentally tell the real life story, so now I have to go in and compare notes, and we'll see if any of it serendipitously went in there. But
I'm so glad I just watched that movie for the first time. I'm like extra primed to read this book now, and I saw it in 3D, which was an experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. I definitely
really fun.
Yeah, we'll have to. They're not screwball comedies, but they'll
no, but I mean, I was
screwball
laughing
hard
the whole time.
They weren't.
But no, I'm ordering 2 copies of your book. Actually, 2 copies of yours too, Melanie. Now that I know that it's funeral home, I know someone that will love both of these books as well as myself. Excellent. So there we go.
Yeah. I'm very excited to read. After Too Good to Be Real, I'm very excited for that. I know. So, okay. So I think that's kind of, that's it. That's it. Yeah. I'm out of words.
We don't have the classic Hollywood ending where you could just have the music start and it the little
I know, right? Kind of like they do at the end of all the Miss Fisher episodes too, where it's but yeah, so I want to say a huge thank you, Mel, for joining me for the inaugural one. We will definitely have to have you back for future installments, because this was so much fun and I appreciate it. And again, huge thanks to Marissa and Roseanne and everybody at Love Sweet Arrow for taking a chance on this new event. It's been really fun, and I hope all of you watching enjoyed it. And stay tuned. We'll keep you posted on next installments once we get everything finalized and put together, and hopefully this will be the first of many. And I'm always open to, my list of movies, screwballs to talk about is huge. So feel free to send me suggestions and join and get Melanie and Liz's books when they're out. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have